Welcome to Inside the Mind, a podcast hosted by myself, Jennifer Forster, and my beautiful co-host, Allie May. We're excited to be here, diving into edgy, raw, and relatable conversations woven together with mind-blowing questions that will shake up your model of the world, expand your thinking, unravel your beliefs, tease apart your patterns, and walk you to the very edges of everything you've ever believed about yourself.
As NLP trainers, coaches, entrepreneurs, we will be traversing the topics of business, relationships, money, family, spirituality, leadership, and personal growth, all through the discerning lens of NLP, ancient teachings, and a healthy sprinkling of womanly wisdom. One thing we believe to be true is that if we want a different outcome, we must be willing to ask a different question. And the answers to those questions are always inside the mind.
Hello, Allie May.
5-star. We are back for episode 3 and we are so excited to be diving into another one of our favorite topics in the NLP space, behavioural flexibility. And geez, do we have a doozy of a story.
We have an extraordinary story to share with you today. And before we dive into the story, let's talk about behavioural flexibility. So to begin with, inside of NLP, inside of the body of work that Allie and I live, breathe, and teach, is 15 presuppositions. Now, presuppositions are assumptions. They are convenient beliefs that we take on as people who embody the work of NLP and teach the work of NLP, as beliefs that will support us to live in an empowered way in life. Now, there are 15 of them. And if you think of them like the 10 commandments, it's kind of like they are our principles for living a life of excellence. And Allie and I run everything through many of these presuppositions. We are going to dive into all of them with you over the coming episodes. However, one of the key presuppositions that we want to talk with you today about is the presupposition of behavioural flexibility, and it's called the Law of Requisite Variety. The Law of Requisite Variety, which just simply means that the person with the most behavioural flexibility controls the situation.
And just a little example there, and we're going to go into something else, just a little example there that always comes to mind for me, yes, always, is imagine a little child chucking a tantrum in a shopping centre. And the child, like parents can flip out on that, right? And so it is said that if you one-up the child in their tantrum, so you got down on the floor and started chucking a tantrum as well, and you were in that one-up space, that you would have the most behavioural flexibility. And what would happen there usually is that the child would stop crying and look at you going, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah. So with behavioural flexibility, we do have an extraordinary story to share with you today. So I think let's dive into the story, which is going to help you just get a little bit more context. And just before we do, what we've shared with you in these first 3 episodes, as we've said already, if you were to only listen to these first 3 episodes, adopt the information that we've shared with you, and rigorously and with volition applied it to your life, including today's episode, your life would change in ways that you would not probably be able to fathom. The way you view the world and your life would literally spin on its head. So today's episode makes up part of the principles and foundations under which Allie and I live with rigor and volition in our own lives. And so consider that as you listen to today's story. Cause and effect was episode 1, which is, taking responsibility for your complaints in life. Episode 2, perception is projection, taking responsibility for your judgments in the world of others and their communications. And today is behavioural flexibility, which is really taking control of your whinges in life and flipping them into something that will offer you some value instead.
And all of these topics have multiple pieces attached to them and do 100 other things as well. And they're just some of the key ones.
Yeah.
Do you want me to start?
Let's have you lead this story off, because it's a beautiful story, Allie, and we all garnered so much value from this?
All right. So it seems in hindsight and reflection that behavioral flexibility was very required at my first 3 NLP trainings that I ran. And so at Jen's, when Jen came and studied NLP prac with me, we had this beautiful retreat space organized. It's so spectacular. And I am not always the detailed gal. I'm just like the big ideas usually.
Great cause there. Can I just offer for our listeners, Allie being in full cause there. Just being in full cause for this is who I know myself to be. Always, no, in this moment, yeah, I'm owning this. Yeah,
I have gotten better in some instances after this experience.
Behavioural flexibility will do that for you if you let it.
100%. And I tell you what, I've had my heart in my throat with the other bookings that I've made, triple checking all of this. So I'll share. So we have this beautiful luxury retreat space booked. I've got 6 beautiful students coming and my assistant. And we turn up at a certain time. We all meet at the front desk of this beautiful space. And I go to the front counter. The ladies had been dealing with me a lot and they knew who I was. And I go in and I'm like, we're here to check in. And the lady behind the counter says to me, oh yeah, Allie, we've got you booked in for next Friday. And I was like, no, it's this Friday. It's today. They're like, no, we've got you booked in for next Friday. So in our email communications, so everybody knew that the date was booked for this specific date when we arrived. And somehow in the communication between myself and the place that we're staying at, somehow the communication got muddled up and I also didn't check my emails effectively. So I missed that they'd been putting the date in for the following Friday. So here we are and it's like a holy shit moment. This is a 9-day retreat. Everybody's paid for their space there. Everybody's paid for the training. And I was in that moment, it was like a holy shit moment. Now, with behavioral flexibility, we have 2 options. We can fall apart or we can just soldier on. And so my question was, well, what can we do about this? Is there another house available for us? There's multiple houses on this island. Is there something else we can do? Now, fortunately, in NLP, we are taught rapport. We are taught how to get into rapport with people. And I think it's just drilled into me now and I have automatic rapport with people most of the time. So this beautiful lady behind the counter did everything for us to be able to have the retreat go ahead. So we ended up staying, she organized across the road at a school camping ground, this room for us. Now think back to when you were a child, if you are our vintage. We had this room that was something from the 80s that had 2 bunk beds in each room. We had trundle beds put in the lounge. It was the tiniest little square. My best friend, my other best friend, Lee, she came and did the training with us as well. So her and I bunked in together in this very old school bed. And all of us squished into this school kids camping.
8 of us, 8 women in like a camp.
It's like a little homey
cabin.
Cabin, that's it.
Yeah, like a camp cabin that just, as you said, multiple sets of bunk beds, tiny space. We all had our luggage. We all had eskies full of food. We had everything.
And we couldn't even utilize the fridge that was there because we had that much food. So we had, each day we would go, I think we stayed 2 nights there at this place. And we would go back over to the resort and they let us train in one of their beautiful rec spaces. We were training for the first 2 days in a kids' room. The ladies had
like a kids' daycare room.
Actual kids' room. The ladies were sitting in bean bags. There were kids' toys all around. It was coloured brightly in there, and our food was in this in 2 fridges. You would have to drive 5 minutes to get to the other location, and that was the start of our retreat. Now, if I had fallen apart and the ladies had fallen apart, it could have been a different outcome for that training. And because I believe, because I held myself so well in that, and because of how I see the world, I was able to transfer that over to the other ladies as well. Now, some stuff did come up for some of the ladies, for sure, because we were supposed to be in 5-star luxury from the start. And everybody was a trooper. Everyone was a trooper, and whatever came up was just dealt with, and it was cleared at the training anyway if there was any remnants left over. And that is just the classic example of behavioral flexibility. Just to briefly cover off, my 3rd NLP retreat, second NLP retreat, behavioural flexibility as well. We had floods here on the Sunshine Coast, and we were booked into the same venue, and we couldn't get across the barge. And we didn't, there was a whole lot with that one as well. We ended up getting an Airbnb, and the behavioural flexibility that was required with that one, again, if I hadn't have done the work that I'd done, I would have been rocking in a corner crying my eyes out. Fortunately, I had Jen was my assistant to that one, to chat with about it as well, and we worked out a plan, and everything went really, really great.
It went really, really well. And so on this, and if we even circle back to just bring in a few of the pieces from last week's episode on perception is projection, and marry that into this episode around behavioural flexibility. The interesting thing is, because we all were able, through your lead, because we hadn't learned anything about behavioural flexibility at this point in time.
You'd heard it on the audio. We'd heard it unconsciously there.
We'd heard it unconsciously. But being able to be in that, the energetics of behavioural flexibility, and the interesting thing is when we all get together and talk about our prac training, nobody remembers the cabin, which is kind of sad, because it was actually a really beautiful, when the way we took it on and received it, we made it a beautiful experience. However, isn't it interesting that when I know this is true for the other women because we've talked about this together, when we talk about our prac training, what you'll never hear any one of us talk about is the cabin. Nothing gets mentioned unless we share it in the context of sharing an example like we are now as a beautiful example to illustrate behavioural flexibility. Now, why is that important? Well, that's important because if we had have taken that on as being the thing that we grabbed as our 134 bits from that experience, what do you think all of us now, there's 8 of us now, would have all been projecting back out into the world? Would have been shit, right? We're projecting out our why things don't work out for us story. So by being and I want to share this because the NLP principles, if you begin to live them as a way of life, which is what Allie and I do, and I really want to be clear on this, there are people that teach NLP that, in my observation, don't necessarily live this as a way of life. And I think that's true for anything, right? You could be a personal trainer, for example, and you could, party hard all weekend and then rock up and, be a model of health through the week. To me, that's not living what you teach. So Allie and I live NLP as a way of life. And so all of these things that we're sharing with you, they all marry into each other, and they all create a ripple effect, if you like. They all create a cascade of empowered thinking and feeling and hearing and seeing. And it all comes back to, every time we practice one of these themes of NLP or presuppositions of NLP, we're actually cleaning up our internal representation. We're cleaning up the filters with which we are taking in more and more information. So why is having behavioural flexibility important? Well, yeah, it's important so that you actually, can have a really good experience, but it's much bigger than that, because how you choose to take on an experience is how you're going to project that experience back out into your world for future experiences. So all of every single experience we have, from the moment, we're born to the moment we die, our experiences are informing our future. So how do you want your future to be informed? Through an experience of, well, this is shit, Allie. Why are we in a cabin, and this sucks, and I didn't pay for this, and blah, 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 blah. Why would I have that be the experience that informs my future? Because I don't want more of that, do I? Of course not. So, yeah.
I also want to bring in modeling excellence here. So if I was the kind of leader and trainer where I fell apart and I got annoyed and I had an argument with the people that were running the training and I didn't take full responsibility for my part in it, and I bitched and moaned to the girls about it and I made it a big deal, then my leadership, what I am what I am putting out there for my girls that came through my training is I'm teaching them to be that way as well. Now that goes against everything that we learn in our body of work. So for me, I take it, it's important for me that I'm modeling excellence, and that the person that I am, that I walk. So it's important for me that I walk my walk and I talk my talk, that I'm congruent, not that I just rock up and I lose my shit and I fall apart and then I teach you something that I'm not embodied in. And I think there's a lot of leadership that I see, not to disrespect anybody, and there's a lot of leadership I see where people are incongruent. So it's really important for Jen and I that we are congruent and aligned, and we do what we say we're going to do, and that we truly, Jen's touched on it multiple times, we truly live this body of work. It's potent and powerful.
It really is. And I think that's true for anything. I think, we live in an information abundant world. There is never, ever in the history of our world has there been more information available to us, right? We all walk around with supercomputers in our hands every single day. However, if we look at the state of our world, does it reflect that we have all this information available to us? Not really. There's still a lot of problems for humanity and challenges happening in the realm of, the earthly world that we live in for humanity. So it's not about just having this as information. NLP as information, yeah, it's great. It's amazing. Yeah, it sounds good, and it sometimes really feels good too. However, the rubber hits the road when you can take a body of work or a body of wisdom and actually apply it experientially to everything that you do in your life. That is when you're going to start to experience change. And NLP, there are many definitions for NLP, but one of my favorites is NLP is a series of processes and techniques for modeling and replicating excellence in your life. That's it. So that's why we're really excited about sharing this information with you, because as I've just said, even if you did only listen to these first 3 episodes and you took the information that we've shared with you and you started to apply it experientially to your life will change in ways that will seem like magic to you. It will seem like magic to you. People will show up differently in your world. Experiences will show up differently for you. Your opportunities will show up differently for you. You will suddenly think that you've become the manifesting queen of the world. And it's because you are every single day inviting yourself to your own cleanup party through the tools and techniques of NLP.
And can you, with behavioural flexibility, can you bend with life? Can you flex with life? And I will close this out unless you've got something else to share as well, Jen. This is how I see behavioural flexibility, being able to bend with life. If we look at a tree, are your roots firmly planted in the ground? Are you solid in who you are? Are you certain in who you are and what you're here to do? And if those roots are rock solid in the ground, or growing, not rock solid, probably not the right words there, if they are nourished and growing through the earth and they are solid, and then your tree trunk is solid as well, then it doesn't matter if there is a storm or a cyclone blowing your leaves around. It doesn't matter if there is
hail at our photo shoot.
Yes, oh my gosh, real life story there. None of it matters, because when you have behavioral flexibility, you're rock solid in everything else, and you get to shift and move with the experiences. If there's anything that we know about life, it's unpredictable. And are you fighting the unpredictability, or are you flowing with the unpredictability? Because that is a much more beautiful way to live, when you can flow with possibility in life.
I think that does us today.
Yeah.
Amazing. We will see you on the next episode.